You are watching the Weekend Sports Kickoff right here on KNWT, Channel 8. I'm Devin Albertson, joined by Ryan Elliott, Trevor Mader, and Jacob Blair. Caleb is producing the show today. It's our final
Hi,
TV
Caleb.
show
Hi,
of
Caleb.
the semester.
And Andy. Don't forget about Andy.
Andy's over there helping him out, so
Hi, Andy.
thanks to those two over there. He's coming for you. As it's the final TV show of the semester we have here for WSK, as we'll get some more of that stuff later on. But we're going to start out with Bearcat Athletics. The spring game was last night. Trevor was on the play-by-play. I helped with the color with Kramer, who's right now over at the baseball field. So if you want to listen to the baseball game, that's on KZLX 106.7. But we're here talking sports on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook Live. And I'll go to you first, Trevor. What about the spring game that you saw that kind of stuck out to you last night calling the game?
A handful of things. The one thing that I paid the most attention to is I wanted to see the quarterback situation because we felt like all three guys still have a legitimate shot coming into it to be the starter in the fall. And then the running backs. I wanted to see because it's a hefty field of running backs we have, and there could be more coming that didn't play in the spring game last night. So those are kind of the two things that stuck out to me and the two things that I paid the most attention to last night.
Yeah, for me, they had the three quarterbacks rotating each possession. So you had Kowalski, Brandon, and Wright. And, of course, Trevor's favorite was Brandon because he wore number 28. And any quarterback that wears a number that's not normal kind of, just catches his eye, and he really appreciated that.
How cool is that to be a quarterback wearing number 28? I mean, you don't see that much anymore. Doug Flutie did it.
22.
Shea Patterson does it. It will do it if he starts at Michigan. That's really about it.
And there's a kid in Kentucky that wore 22.
There's a kid in Indiana, too.
Was it Jared Lorenzen? Did Jared Lorenzen wear 22?
I think so.
I don't remember. I think it was Jared Lorenzen that wore 22.
Yeah, and Richard Lego from Indiana did it as well, wore 21. But I think that's really cool just to see that. But all joking aside, when I looked at the quarterback battle last night, I kind of came in with the preconceived notion that I like Kowalski more. But after watching last night, I saw some really good things from all three of them. Joe Brandon looked like he's more comfortable in the pocket. I think maybe he was too comfortable at times last night because there was one time where he basically stepped right into a really hard hit by Nick Hess. And also, Kowalski showed the arm strength.
Yes, he did.
Looked like. I mean, he wasn't afraid to let it rip. Wasn't necessarily the most accurate, but he did have that one long touchdown pass.
He had the best ball of the night when he threw it to Carmichael down the left hash marks for that 73-yard touchdown. That was a beautiful ball, and he had a couple of nice passes. And I think if he gets more time with the receivers kind of to gel up a little bit more, he'll be able to be a little more accurate with some of that stuff. So the arm talent's definitely there with Kowalski.
But I think Braden Wright looked the most impressive of the three, just the way he made plays. He had the one quarterback keeper that he put it right in Isaiah Strayhorn's hands and yanked it out and kept it on basically like a read option. Fooled the entire defense, fooled me out, and scored a touchdown. He also made a lot of plays with his feet. He showed mobility. Almost kind of reminded me of like a Brady Bowles type quarterback that he could make those plays with his feet. So he was one that definitely stood out to me last night.
I think we look at, and I was unfortunately stuck in the studio for the spring game last night. Didn't get to get out and watch it, but the great call of John Coffey and Matt Tritton, I was able to basically see it happen. You've got your three guys here, and I think Kowalski's probably got the best arm. Brandon's probably the most composed, and Braden Wright's more of a pure runner. I think we had the ability to have Rich Wright on the broadcast last night of the spring game and talk to him actually during the second quarter. And one of the things that he mentioned was there was a little bit of comparison between Braden Wright and both of the Bulls, Brady and even more so Blake. And he's a little bit more of a pure runner than those two are. He doesn't quite have the arm that they did to start off. Of course, that can be developed. But as of right now, I think you have to look at, you look at all the options, but if I am the Bearcat coaching staff right now, which I'm not, but if I were, I think I go with Kowalski just because of that incredible arm strength that's hard to overlook, and then you mix in Braden Wright as kind of an off-pace, the way that they used to use guys like Brady Bowles in the past, or Kyle Zimmerman a couple of years ago,
before they converted him to
Randy Schmidt. So I think that could be a way to develop it, and that would be a good mix. But I think the competition, especially between Brandon and Kowalski, because they're a lot more similar than Wright is with either one of them, is going to be fun to watch. I think they're both all three of them are incredibly talented quarterbacks, and so it's going to be fun to see who comes out of it and is starting under center day one.
Yeah, I didn't see either one of the guys. Like, all three of the guys looked confident. No one looked like they were in over their head out there. They all looked like they were in control of the offense, can make the plays out there. And there were a couple of drops that plagued the offense a bit there in the spring game as well. Some guys that usually make some catches that dropped a couple of passes as well. But if we're talking about receivers, it's got to be Alec Tatum. He had a nice impact. He was a little 5'9" slot receiver, but he made a lot of nice plays there in that game. And I was really, can't wait, impressed with what he did for the offense there for the teams.
And he showed some speed too. I mean, when he's able to get downhill, he showed some really good speed. He's going to be kind of a good safety valve weapon for whoever that quarterback is. He's not going to be a guy that's probably going to beat you deep a lot, but when you have a guy like Sean Bain Jr. or Kennedy Sykes who's 6'5", you don't necessarily need that. You got a guy that can line up in the slot, get you that 8-10 yard gain on second or third down to make the next down either manageable or get you the first down. And he did pretty well in the return game too. He had one really nice return in the second quarter that ended up getting called back due to a penalty, but he showed some flashes as well.
I think you look at Alec Tatum, and he was another guy that Coach Wright talked about during the spring game, was that he doesn't take a play off. He works every single play, and he said, Coach Wright said that because of that, he's made himself into a really good football player. He's got the quickness, he's got the speed, and really this receiver core as a whole, you look at, and I think that's where Kowalski might benefit you a little bit more with his arm strength, because you've got guys like Sean Bain, like Armani Carmichael, who's got a lot of speed, Faisal Bashard, who's got a lot of speed, Quincy Woods has a lot of speed down the sideline, and Alec Tatum has a lot of speed to him. Guys that you can let Jaden Kowalski just launch the ball and say, okay, run under it. Yep. And these guys can do that. You also have a guy like Kennedy Sykes at 6'5", who you can really run those bullet passes into, and he can reliably get a hold of. I just think with the receiver core that you have, I feel like that core is going to showcase the talents of Jaden Kowalski more than maybe the other two quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, like I said a minute ago, this quarterback battle between those three is going to be really fun to watch.
And one thing I want to say with this is just the receivers. I know we talk a lot about Tatum with those little slants, but also they run those tunnel screens a lot, and he was really good at that because he's fast, but he's more quick than fast. And that's one thing with those tunnel screens that is nice to see. He can make those quick twitch moves that are hard to corral him at, and he's pretty small too, so it's hard to get a hold of him even there in the situation. So he was really impressive there, and running routes and trying to get open from that defense in Northwest is always difficult because even when they lose talent, they're always really good back there. So him making plays against that type of defense is always kind of impressive, even if it's younger guys.
And you know what? With this receiver core, I know it feels like, these guys have been around forever, especially Sean Bain, who, he's been playing since he was a freshman, obviously. But, Sean Bain's been here for so long. But if you look at this receiving core, they're relatively young. A lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores. Carmichael, a sophomore. Yeah. Woods, a junior. Bouchard, a sophomore. Tatum, a sophomore. Joe Straws, a junior. These guys, there are a lot of weapons for the future here, and I think that's good to see for the future of Bearcat football.
And a couple guys who are going to redshirt, and Harper and Wheaton.
Yeah. And they're really good. They had Peyton Peterson as well, who's a freshman that I believe caught 2 or 3 passes last night as well. So a lot of very young talent in that receiving core. Another thing I talked about, guys, is the running backs. We figure Emmanuel Jones is going to probably be the workhorse this season, but a lot of the other guys got some opportunities. Brody McMahon saw a lot of playing time last night. Chase White got a handful of playing time. But I know the one guy that really stuck out to Devin and myself was Raymond Thomas, just kind of how he had that extra burst of speed and had a couple of really big plays.
Yeah, one thing I said last night after he had that 71-yard touchdown run late in the game, I said he makes fast guys look not so fast. I mean, he's just that quick, and he had probably 3 runs where he broke out from the line of scrimmage. You could just see him showcasing that speed in that one. Of course, he took all the way to the house. So he's only 5'7", $170, but man, he's fast. And see if they can just utilize him in some of the other things Northwest offense does. He could be a nice weapon for him this year.
I think, you look at Thomas obviously has the speed, and I think you look at Isaiah Strayhorn, the transfer from California, who is a good mix of the two at 5'11", 205, something like that. And he's a guy that you could be an every down back if you were to give him that chance. But I still think Emmanuel Jones is the answer at running back right now. He has the perfect mix of size, strength, and speed, and that's the stereotypical Northwest running back. I think if you look back through the years at the running backs that Northwest has had that have had success, you see Xavier Oman, you see LaRon Council, you see guys like Phil Jackson, you see those sorts of running backs, and you see a good mix of size, strength, and speed, and I think that's also what Emmanuel Jones has.
And we're also not a guy who didn't play last night, but Caldwell.
Yeah,
it's another
Caldwell,
guy in the mix.
Who he's not even on the roster yet, is he?
No,
I don't think they can put him on the roster until the end of the semester. But yeah, Caldwell is another option at running back. This is a deep offense altogether, let alone not just at any single position. Maybe with the exception of the offensive line with some unknowns, but as far as weapons go, it's an incredibly deep offense.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it. And whoever's in at quarterback's going to have plenty of weapons to throw to. And the O-line looked better last night. They looked more cohesive a bit there up front. I know a couple blitzes for Northwest, the D-line. They got to him a little bit on a couple blitzes. But other than that, if it was a regular rush, they did a nice job. They opened a few holes up for the running backs as well. So if they play better this year as well, that'll really help out the special skills guy do their job a little better.
Well, and it's an even more experienced offensive line this year. You've got Chase Thomas, who's played a lot of center, who's got another year under his belt. There were a couple of struggles last year, but he's settling in. A guy like Zach Flott, who's been around for a long time. Tanner Owen, who's just a sophomore and is incredibly talented.
Yeah.
He's going to be a big-time offensive line, and I think he's going to be the anchor for this offensive line for the next couple of years to come. And then Trey Cothey, who hasn't gotten a whole lot of first-team time in his time here, but he's got incredible size at 6'7", and he's got the ability to get those long arms out there and keep guys away, keep that distance that is going to be a huge advantage for him.
Yeah, so really excited to see what this offense can do. And, of course, the defense, the guy who stood out to me yesterday had to be the safety, Jacob Gassman. He was all over the field. That guy was just screaming out the secondary to come make tackles at the line of scrimmage.
There was one play where I think he was lined up probably 12, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and it was a play action, and whoever the quarterback was, I think it was Wright, ended up keeping it. And Gassman was the first guy there on the far side of the field. He came all the way across the field and stopped Wright for a handful of yardage of gain. He was, like you said, he was all over the place, stopping the run. I think he had a couple pass deflections as well. Hess had a really good start to the game. He did some really good things. And then one guy that I don't know how much we'll see from him this year being a true freshman, but going forward, Sam Phillips made a couple really nice plays, almost had an interception. He had a couple tackles. So there were a lot of things to like from the spring game last night.
Yeah, definitely without there. And, of course, one thing I want to notice here was there's not a whole lot of defensive tackles, like prototypical defensive tackles are a big beef. So what I saw a lot of was guys like Samuel Roberts, who is a big defensive end, sliding down inside and using his long arms and his reach a bit in a D-tackle position and trying to utilize some of his talents inside. Because they have so many good defensive ends, they're trying to get guys who are talented more work. And I think that's going to be a good idea there with Samuel Roberts, who has the talent to go inside and slide in as a defensive tackle.
I think you look at, one of the things that stuck out to me about the spring game was the names that didn't play. You look at guys like Mike Elke, like Ben Altoff, like Anthony Lane that are recovering from injuries that just didn't play in the spring game. And I think, as good as everybody looked in the spring game, you're also missing three mainstays on your defense. Probably, Ben Altoff, who's probably the best linebacker in the MIAA. You got, a guy like Anthony Lane, who has the ability to completely change a ball game from the corner position, and Mike Elke, who's going to be one of, I think, if you look at, you mentioned Samuel Roberts moving to the inside, so you've got Roberts and then options like Blake Green in there. There's a couple other guys in there, Zach Pierce, that could be on the inside, and then you're outside, you look at Eskew and Elke, and that's scary. That's the 1-2 punch we've seen for so many years from Bevins and Weidel, from Eskew and Grunlow, from even if you go back to the days of Sean Paddock and Matt Longacre, and you just this huge list of great defensive ends that we've had here at Northwest, and both of those guys, and including Samuel Roberts, have the ability to be right along that list with the rest of them.
And we saw Grunlow his junior year slide inside because they had Weidel and Bevins. He slid in on D tackle and gave him another guy to put out there, and he was definitely talented enough to do so. And another guy we didn't mention there, defensive tackle, a sophomore, transfer from K-State, Kalen Key. He's a big boy, 6 foot 282. He did a nice job as well with some of his. He was more mobile than I thought he was, so he did a nice job. And of course, with the D-line, I'm not usually worried about the D-line because it's Rich Wright, and he's a magician when it comes to D-linemen, so I'm not too worried about the D-line. This team should be pretty good. The kicking game still worried me. They had some struggles again last night. They did make a 38-yarder. They did miss a 49-yarder and a 48-yarder. The 48-yarder had plenty of leg, was just off left, and the 49-yarder before, not sure what exactly happened on that kick, but it was ugly.
Yeah,
it didn't get to the 20-yard line.
Yeah. Thorman did look really well last night, for what that's worth. I know you don't want your punter to get a lot of repetitions in a spring game, but I can't think of any bad punts that he had throughout the night. He had a lot of punts. So.
Well, and in a Northwest spring game, the punter's just going to get a lot of work because that's just how it goes in spring ball. Is the defense always seems to develop first, and once the defense is developed, especially at Northwest, it's almost impossible to go anywhere offensively. So I kind of expected that going in just because of the way it normally plays out in spring ball.
And that's what we got for the spring game. A little update from around campus. The softball team swept Fort Hays today, won 8-0 in the first game, and then 6-5 in the second game. Right now, the baseball game is going on in KZLX. Kramer should be over there on the call for that. Right now, Northwest trails 5-3 in the top of the fourth inning, 2 outs. Pitt has 2 runners on with first and second. And then we'll see what happens this weekend with weather-wise for tennis. I think the track meet got moved.
I thought I saw. I think they're going to. They're going to William Jewell instead of
Kearney. Wichita State. Yeah, they've moved a little
from
bit.
Kearney to Wichita State, and now they're going to William Jewell instead of Wichita State, I believe.
Weather's crazy now.
But, I think for the baseball team, I think we're finally seeing the fact that they didn't catch any of those top 5 teams in the conference early in their schedule, catch up with them here. Pittsburgh State's just a good baseball team, and I think, look at a team like Pittsburgh State, they were able to compete with Central Missouri, but I just, they've got a big series with UCO coming up here in the next week or two that's going to cap off their season. They're top of the conference, so I think we're just seeing that catch up with them a little bit here.
Well, in baseball, they got off to kind of a hot start here earlier on today. I think they jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first, and now things have kind of reeled back in for Pitt State, so there's still a lot of ball game left in that one.
And, of course, they'll be on the road next Tuesday. They go to Nebraska-Kearney for a doubleheader. So that's kind of what's going on right there with the baseball team, and we'll get more stuff for you guys on Bearcat Athletics at another time. But as of right now, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about a big-name wide receiver hitting the open market in the NFL and is one of the quarterbacks in this year's draft tanking his draft stock so he can go to New England. Find out next here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff on KNWT Channel 8. And welcome back in to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. I'm Devin Albertson, joined by Trevor Mater, Jacob Blair, Ryan Elliott, and also our producer is Caleb with his associate Andy today, as they're running everything on the TV side for our last show of the semester on television. So last time you can see our somewhat beautiful faces until the fall, at least for these 3 guys.
Let's be real.
I'll be gone. This is my last show here on TV. But talking about gone, Des Bryant is out of Dallas, as he's been announced that he's been released from the Cowboys as of this morning. I'll just kind of open up to the floor. What do you guys think about Des Bryant out of Dallas?
So here's something interesting that was published by Darren Gant of NBC Sports about an hour and a half ago. He said Des Bryant reportedly told the Cowboys after they released him that he would see them twice this year. And
he also put in his tweet, time to start the process.
So does that mean he's going to the Eagles? Because, that's what because Des Bryant's still got it. I mean, maybe he's taking a little bit of a step back, but the guy's 29 years old. It's not like he's 36. I mean, he's 29 years old. He's still got some things that are there to like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at Bryant's there's been injury issues. There's been, just some nagging things that Des Bryant's had to deal with that have made him seem like he's not quite the same Des Bryant as he used to be. But I think if he can get 100% healthy, and if he's going to have a chip on his shoulder this year, like it seems like he's certainly going to, if he goes to Philadelphia, that's terrifying for the Cowboys. Absolutely terrifying.
Well, and you got to think, too, the Redskins don't have a ton of offensive weapons right now. I mean, they lost Deshaun Jackson last year.
Well, yeah, that's a recipe for the Eagles to walk out of that division again.
Yeah. So I don't know where he'll end up. I could see him ending up somewhere like Carolina, give Cam Newton another body to throw to, and you never know. You always got to throw New England into this discussion when you're talking about guys like this. But I just find it interesting that they cut him this late in the process when it's been pretty foregone for a while that it sounded like they were going to move on from him. They really didn't do him any favors by doing this because most teams have filled up about most of their cap room.
Yep.
I mean, so he's definitely not going to get the money that maybe he would have got a month ago. I mean, it's not the Cowboys' job to care about that. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes of this.
Yeah, this surprised me and then didn't surprise me at the same time that they cut him. And really, when I look at teams he might end up with, one team that kind of is a little bit interesting is the Green Bay Packers. Packers lost Jordy Nelson. He went away, and there's a little bit of a hole missing there in Green Bay. That'd be interesting to see Dez give Aaron Rodgers another weapon and then makes the NFC really kind of rises the stock of the Packers if he does end up there. Not saying that's going to. I just think that'd be a good fit for Dez in Green Bay.
Well, and what about the 49ers as well? I mean, they don't really have that top-notch wide receiver at the moment. You've got a guy in Jimmy Garoppolo that you feel like is the future. They've got some good pieces on the defense. I mean, I think they got Jerick McKinnon now from the Vikings as well. I'm sure they'll add another running back, whether it be through the draft or whatnot. But maybe give Jimmy Garoppolo that kind of safety cushion with Des Bryant.
One thing I want to kind of mention here was Dez is only 29. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but he's definitely taking a step back in his game, especially his first step. Like his speed is not there. He can't get separation by just being faster than everybody else at this point. He's got to learn how to run better routes. And just seen on Twitter, and I know Seth Kaiser does a lot of the Chiefs review stuff. He kind of put out there like, hey, the Chiefs aren't going to get him because they're already fine, but just kind of interesting how he sees the replies that he's old and stuff like that. And someone's like, yeah, injuries. And he's like, well, I guess he could kind of compare him to Dwayne Bowe, because Dwayne Bowe's kind of that same way, the big-bodied receiver who kind of get separation when he was younger. And then when he got the injuries, he got older. When he loses a step, it's a big step to lose because he can't get separation anymore and he's not as good.
The question is has he lost a step, or did injuries cause him to lose a step? You know, he had the broken foot in 2015, and then a tibial plateau fracture in 2016, which nagged him through 2017. I don't think he hasn't been 100% healthy over the last 3 seasons.
No, he hasn't.
It just hasn't happened. So it's going to be interesting to see, and it's certainly possible that he has lost a step. A lot of guys do when they get around that 30 mark. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can have a season that is 100% healthy, or at least a few games. We haven't even seen games out of Des Bryant where he's 100% healthy over the last couple of years. If we can see a couple of games of Des Bryant and he's 100% healthy, maybe he still does have that step. It's possible that it just could have been injuries, but I'm interested to see what he can do in those situations.
Well, and you guys kind of mentioned this earlier, is he's going to now have a chip on his shoulder after being cut by the Cowboys. Wherever he ends up, he's going to want to prove to not only himself but the rest of the league that he's still got it, and that could produce for a very scary Des Bryant for wherever he ends up.
So Des Bryant's deal with the Cowboys that he signed in 2015 was 5 years, $70 million. So roughly $14 million a year. I don't see anything like that coming.
He was going to get paid $16.5 million this year.
Yeah, and I think their cap hit was $8 million for cutting him, if I read that correctly.
I think something like that.
But I see Des Bryant getting something like a 1 year $10 million or a 2 year $18 million, something like that. And with those 1 year contracts, then it gives him a chance to bet on himself. If he comes out and has a year like he did 3 or 4 years ago and stays healthy, he could earn that contract that he never really completely got in Dallas.
What we have for the NFL, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Japanese Babe Ruth. What does it mean to get yoasted? And our fight's banned for baseball. Next here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff on KNWT Channel 8. Thank you for watching the Weekend Sports Kickoff. This week, I want to give a huge shout out to my amazing crew: Ryan, Kramer, Jacob, Caleb, Joe, and even Trevor. I love all you guys. I want you to click right here to see previous episodes of the Weekend Sports Kickoff, and click down here to watch episode of Bearcat Update. For the last time, I'm Devin Albertson.